I think we can slowly start. Can you hear me properly? Yes. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our panel talk on pearls, challenges and new creative scenarios. So let me start by introducing our guests. First of all, myself, Donatella Zappieri, jewelry business consultant. And I really have the privilege to be together with my three guests, starting with Milena Lazazzera, who is a journalist and historian for the New York Times, Financial Times, Vogue Business. And for all of us, I guess Milena is really a point of reference in our industry, because when she writes, she also has this very interesting angle and this interesting approach to anything she shares with us when she writes. Milena also has a master's degree in linguistics in Italy and Germany, and has a master's degree from the French Grande École Business School. And I just learned she also speaks French.
Yes.
Right. So Laurent Cartier, next to us, and lecturer and researcher on gemstone at the University of Lausanne. And Laurent has a great culture for everything that relates to sustainability issues that we will, of course, discuss about today, because this really relates to the challenges. And Laurent works also for the Swiss Gemological Institute. And he has also written a very interesting book about sustainability in pearls. So with him, we will be sharing a lot about that topic. And Melanie Gergopoulos, did I pronounce it right? French-Greek, right? Pearl designer with a very interesting background. Melanie found her love for pearls when she was at her master, right? At the London College, correct? And since then, she's been designing wonderful creation in pearls. So I think she's one of the best people here to talk also about what is next in the future of design and in terms of pearls. So today, we really would like to discuss and share the topic from different angles. And that's why my expert here, they all come from, the journalistic point of view, the more scientific point of view, if I may say, and also from the creative point of view. Preparing this panel, was also for me a very interesting deep dive into the world of pearls. And I've also discovered that, for instance, pearls have been a very interesting product of exchange already back in time. And they had, at the very beginning of all our civilization, a token of noblesse that was making them, an element that would relate very strongly to the upper part of the society. And I learned that Julius Caesar, for instance, was defining the pearls as being the object of exchange only for the noble society. Interesting enough, today, if we look at some figures, pearls are really living a very interesting moment. When we talk at numbers, I have to read them loud, the global pearl industry has been estimated to reach $10.5 billion in 2023, with an expected rate of growth by 2030 up to $25 billion. So it's very interesting, and also from a consumer perception, what is very interesting is to see that the request for pearls has been tripled on internet in the research, which opens up a very interesting approach to the way also young generation are approaching pearls. So this is just to give you like an overall background. And I really would like to start having our guests sharing with us, their knowledge and their information. And I would like to start with Milena. Milena, you are witnessing a very interesting revamp of pearl jewelry. We've seen also pearls on the fashion catwalks. We've been, seeing a lot of young people wearing pearls. From your perspective, what is your point of view? Is it a trend? Is it something which is very deep dive in the way the society is evolving? What would be your point of view?
Yes, it's a very interesting question, and I think I have two words to sum up what is happening in the market at the moment. One is environment, and the other one is design. So if we start with design first, we can see that in the past, one single pearl was enough to make a look, to make a statement, to tell people that the person wearing that pearl was a wealthy person and a powerful person. Just one pearl was enough. So there was no need of creating an interesting design around the pearl. The pearl did the job, and the jeweler just had to show it in a prominent position, and that was it. What happened is then, as we know, Mikimoto invented this technique of, invented the cultured pearl, and suddenly pearls could be produced as we now make popcorn. So there were so many pearls on the market that pearls became kind of uninteresting. They didn't tell anymore that the people wearing them were wealthy and powerful. They were just there and made everyone think about their grandmothers or their mothers. So they were not an interesting gem anymore. And also, if we think about it, that happened at the same time when diamonds became, the techniques of cutting diamonds became more widespread, and there were more interesting jewelry. There was more interesting jewelry with diamonds. So that was really something key. So pearls, I would say, were forgotten for quite a long time. And then there was this new movement of designers like Melanie, for instance. New designers looked at the pearl and thought that if we want to make pearls interesting again, we need to look at the design. We need to look at how pearls can integrate an interesting design rather than just showcasing the pearl as it is, basically. And so that's the design component in my answer. But as I said, there is also another component, which is environment. So we are experiencing at the moment, we are more aware of the damage that humans do to the environment. And that was not the case in the past. In the past, people were just, they were not thinking about whether their activity could harm the planet or not. But now we know about that. And also younger generations, especially younger generations, are more aware and are willing to, to talk about it and to raise this topic. And so pearls really convey this message, because to have a pearl, to create a pearl in the oceans, like all the pearl farms, are possible only if the waters are clean. If waters are not clean, it's not possible to have good pearls. And I'm sure you can tell more about that as well. And so I think that pearls also carry this message of, I care for the environment, I care for the waters, and I want to contribute for it. So we want to see, and so carrying a pearl means I care for the environment, and if I'm carrying a pearl, is that there is still hope and we can still work on saving our planet, basically. So that's what I see in the revival of pearls.
That's a very interesting approach, Milena. Thank you. Thank you. And which leads us also, of course, to a very important question to Laurent about, your studies on the topic, everything that you've been developing also from a literature point of view. Why don't you share with us which are the challenges that we are facing when it comes to pearl growth, if I may say, and everything that happens in the oceans, clean waters? Because I think that also from a consumer perspective, this is not really a topic that is so well known. And I guess it's going to be very important to have your valuable point of view about that and a few highlights on the way things are happening.
Thank you for the big question. I think it's quite a vast topic. We started working on this maybe 10, 15 years ago, and it seemed that people were not so interested in that yet. And now the time seems to be mature, where consumers, the trade, everybody is talking about sustainability, ethics, traceability, positive impact. And so I think pearls are just very different to gold and gemstones and diamonds. They're apart, they're different. I think pearls are like a barometer for the health of our oceans. So if you want to produce beautiful cultured pearls in the long term, you need to work very well with your environment. That doesn't mean that bad farms don't also produce good pearls, but there is a correlation between the two. So a lot of pearl farmers have actually been working on these issues for many years to say, okay, we don't want very intensive farming, no fishing around the farms. We try to set up marine protected areas. And I did a lot of research on this because I thought it was interesting. It was kind of a paradigm shift of how we deal with resources. If you mine gold, the quality of the gold doesn't change depending on how you kind of mine the environment. So this is kind of one trend. Here's a picture of, this was a project in Micronesia, a very, very remote place. It takes 48 hours to get to this island. And the idea is that people there can have local jobs, high value pearls, local resource, and it is kind of a beautiful win-win situation. I don't want to sound too over-romantic either, because the reality is that a lot of pearl farmers are having a hard time. Consumers are interested in sustainable products, but there's a great disconnect between the source and the market. So I think there's a lot of work that has to go into credible and authentic storytelling, and also traceability. And people are trying to figure out how to do that. I think we have to be careful not, I mean, I would slightly disagree with you in saying that we have to be careful not to say I wear a pearl, which means I care about the environment. I think that should be the aim. But some companies are marketing it that way, and it's a bit of a shortcut. But there's great farms, there's great designers, and I think there's great projects that can be done, and there's great potential with pearls. And just to kind of finish up on the question, I think pearls are very interesting because the more CO2 we put in the atmosphere, the more acidic the oceans get, and the harder it is for pearl oysters to form and also pearls to form. So if we want to continue having pearls in 50 or 100 years, we also really need to take care of our environment. So that's it in a nutshell.
Absolutely, and this is a picture that you shared with me, and I was kind of puzzled when I saw that. And I think...
Yeah, so I would also... This is a farm in Palawan in the Philippines. And here what you see is the sea level rise. I was there in 2015. I mean, since I'm sure the numbers would be higher. But it's just to show that the pearl farmers are very aware of these climate change and ocean change issues. And they're kind of at the front lines, which I think really opens doors for designers to collaborate, you know, and try and create more impact there, and also for brands and traders. And I think there's lots of interesting projects that we can come up with in the years to come.
Thank you. And then I wanted to ask you another question, because yesterday, during the introduction to GEM Genève, to the press conference, we could see a few figures. And I was quite surprised to see these figures, talking about 50,000 kilos of pearls produced every year, and 30 kilos being natural. So there is still a huge exploitment, if I may say, you know, of the environment to get those natural pearls. So the balance about that.
The balance. So I'm not familiar with those figures, but there's very little new production of natural pearls. Some people were not so happy 100 years ago when cultured pearls came on the market, but in a way, cultured pearls actually saved the industry. There was so much overfishing in places like Mexico, French Polynesia, and elsewhere in Sri Lanka, that if cultured pearls had not come in, there would have been no more raw material. So I think natural pearls are a different niche market. They're very often, they're not new production, but they're actually old stocks that have been kept well. The secondary market, you take a pearl like the Peregrina, it was fished in the early 1500s, nearly 500 years of history. I mean, we take care of these products as well. So I would say that cultured pearls are a way, like for example in Mexico there's a pearl farm. The pearl farm has meant that we now have a lot more wild oysters again. So I think there are synergies there as well.
Right.
And yeah.
And I think this is why it makes this industry so interesting nowadays, because you have to like set up the right balance and finding the right way to, you know, implement and make sure everything is perfectly preserved from a natural point of view. Thank you. And this leads me also to Melanie. Melanie, well, that's my question, first of all, to you. Since 2007, you know, you choose pearls as the heroine of your collection. Tell us a little bit about your love affair with pearls and what was the strength and the force and the energy behind all your jewelry creation.
Yes. So little did I know in 2007 that I was going to work with pearls for 15 years. And I will keep on going, hopefully, for many, many years. I started using pearls during my master's studies at the Royal College of Art in London, which was a 2-year course. So I came across pearls. I was working with a variety of materials at the time, and out of curiosity, I decided to slice one in two because I was curious to see what it looked like inside. I have a sculptural background, and for me, I saw them as a material that was enigmatic, and I was just curious to see what the core looked like. And then the love affair began because I did my degree show with deconstructing the pearl necklace collection, where I was started to cut pearls. You can see some of the initial designs, especially the one on the right with the sliced pearls. But I always felt that the design was important. So if I was to slice a pearl, I wanted that to be meaningful in a way where when you saw the piece, it made sense. I didn't just slice it and then just put it on a pendant. And then as I started to get recognition and sales, because I wasn't thinking about working just with pearls when I started, it led me to research basically contemporary pearl jewelry, and I realized there was none of it, or to my eyes anyway, hardly any of it from the big jewelry houses. It was always very conventional, the classic pearl necklace, the pendant, the earrings. And as a consumer and also as a 30-year-old, I was looking and thinking, well, what would I wear if I was to choose pearls as a gem to wear? So I started cutting them, faceting them, drilling them. I did all sorts of things to the poor gems. And eventually I decided in 2010 to establish my own brand, focusing on pearls and committing finally to this wonderful gem. And since then, I've carried on. I was very fortunate in 2012 to start a collaboration with Tasaki, a fine jewelry Japanese company, for which I also design a line of pearl jewelry. But to come back to your question, I carry on working with pearls because I keep discovering new pearls. I feel like I'm still learning about pearls. I mean, in most people's minds, I think a pearl is a round, white sphere. And it's so much more than that. There's so many varieties. There's so many interesting people to meet. I still feel that I have so many designs as I explore different pearls and colors. And the recent years, I've also started working with mother of pearl and integrating that into my designs. And in terms of challenges, I mean, there's many. But I would say one of the main ones is that I feel that people still today don't really quite understand the value of pearls. So when they see a piece of jewelry with diamonds, they sort of gravitate naturally towards that, even if it's a tiny diamond. So sometimes they're hesitant to sort of just commit to a piece of jewelry that only has pearls. So sometimes my role is also educational, and I try to share a lot of information when I do events where I sell my own jewelry. And I think this idea of the classic pearl necklace is still part of our narrative today. So even though I've been working with pearls for 15 years, it's still something that is I am unable to, I keep on not fighting, also I sort of use it in my designs because I rebel against it, and I use this narrative in many ways, but it's very hard to go very far from this idea that pearls are pure and classic. So I use it to my advantage, but it is also sometimes a challenge.
Thank you. And I love the way, I mean, the word narrative, because it integrates also this element of poetry, of playing with contrast, playing with imperfection sometimes, and giving and finding out a creative thread that brings, as I can see from your creations, brings pearls as being, you know, with a very important relevance, despite the colors, the imperfection, the shapes, and so on. And so it's kind of revolutionary what you've been doing, because you got out of the comfort zone of timeless pearls, kind of, which it's very interesting also as an approach. And this brings me back, you know, to the initial slides, if I can go back, that I prepared, you know, about famous statements, you know, with pearls, which I thought, again, were interesting to share, because, like, pearls are always appropriate. And then when you see Jackie Kennedy just with her 3 rows of pearls that became, you know, her signature, again, we are in a very comfort zone, kind of. And then Chanel with her strings. And then again, you know, the pearl is the queen of the gems and the gems of the queens. So I think it's very interesting, this dichotomy that we are bringing to the table today for our discussion. You know, the understanding of what has been timeless, has been very dear and classical, and what is next, which are the challenges. So going back to you, Milena, I really would like you to create a kind of a bridge between past and future. You are an historian, but at the same time, you're a journalist. So you manage history, but at the same time, you always have this pulse for the future. So when we talk about pearls, in which way do you think past has influenced the trends? And also from an innovation, what should we expect as new?
Yes. So as I said before, in the past, a pearl was a symbol of power. But as you rightly pointed out, with these images of beautiful women wearing pearls, pearls have also been a symbol of purity and a symbol of beauty as well. And I think pearls are always appropriate. It's something that everyone, I mean, all women have always thought. So there was this symbology associated with pearls, power and purity. But at the moment, what we can see at the moment is a shift. So pearls are not only about power and not anymore about purity, but in a way, pearls are embodying a new message, a message of sort of rebellion. If we look at when pearls became fashionable again, it was not the classic round pearl. The revival of pearls started with the Baroque pearl, an imperfect pearl. So there was this, this movement of celebrating the imperfection. And the pearls were perfect for that, because pearls can come in many different colors, in many different shapes. They're not all round and all white. So they embodied this message very well. And so we have that, and we also have a new phenomenon. Men are starting to wearing pearls as well. So it's interesting to see how what pearls symbolize has changed completely from the past to the present. And definitely the design component has helped, but also the fact that men are wearing them, men who have style and have influence, has also helped that. So they are moving from this zone of comfort in becoming a driver for change in a certain way.
Thank you. So it's really somehow playing with classical and giving it a new twist. Because I remember, you know, while we were a little bit chatting, you were mentioning about Indian men wearing
Yes,
pearls.
absolutely. Yes. So pearls, it's very interesting because in a way we are going back to the past, as you wanted to point out. Absolutely. In the past, if we think of India, for instance, in the 17th century, the Maharajas, they would reserve the pearls only for themselves and also only for their male heir. So they wouldn't allow anyone else to wear long robes of pearls. It was just for them to display their power, to display their wealth, to display their status. But obviously, this has completely changed now, and so we have seen that more women have adopted pearls, men stopped wearing them, and now it's sort of everyone is wearing pearls. But the beautiful thing, I think, is that there is more appreciation for the vast variety of pearls in terms of shapes, in terms of sizes, in terms of colors as well. And there is also a growing interest. I was looking at numbers, I was looking at figures the other day, and I was very surprised to see that the prices for natural pearls are increasing, but so are prices for cultured pearls increasing, simply because there is more knowledge. People, obviously knowledge is easier nowadays, is more accessible. We're just always a few clicks away from an interesting piece of information. And we can educate ourselves in many different ways, not only from books and going to libraries, but even on the internet. Internet obviously provides a wealth of information. And this knowledge about pearls make people curious, which is interesting. So people ask for more variety, the conch pearl. Many say conch pearl, but it's those beautiful non-nacreous pearls. So people want more variety, more colors, also because there is this will of wanting to express themselves in this. And yeah, pearls are a perfect gem because they are really untouched. I mean, they come out of the oyster and they are sort of just a little bit polished, and that's it. It's not that they are cut or treated in any way. So, and that's why they were used as the first gems in the past. They were used as jewelry. They were very simple, beautiful pearl, and then you can wear it in any way, just with whatever, with a thread around the thread, and that was it, basically.
Absolutely. Thank you, Milena. And this also opens up, the topic related to consumers. Laurent, going back to you, when we talk about sustainability, we talk about what happens, you just showed us the farms and so on. How much do you think consumer know and understand about the issues related to pearls farming, and also what is next from your point of view in terms of regulation, what is happening also from a protection control of what is happening in our oceans when it relates to pearls. So consumer-wise, regulation-wise, I know I like to give you always very vast questions.
And I'm going to follow up on something that Milena just said, because it just struck me. So pearls, the oldest pearl that has been found in the world is 8,500 years old in Mexico. 2,000 years ago in Australia, people were collecting pearls already. So what's really interesting about the pearl is I think there's a deeper connection that humans have with pearls, maybe because it doesn't need to be cut. There's something just really deep. I mean, it's the oldest gem known to man and woman. It's been used on every single continent. There's something that I can't explain. Sorry?
Also.
Romantic, maybe spiritual, I don't know. Yeah. But in every single culture, in every region, there's just something which I can't really explain it, but I've come across that kind of everywhere. So I think there's this connection, and as you said, there is power, there is, that you're rich, that you're wealthy, there's beauty, and maybe now there's this opportunity of connection to the oceans. And so there's new consumers. And to come back to your question, Donatella, I think consumers actually know very little about it. And there's a huge amount of storytelling that can and needs to be done. Yeah. And not the generic storytelling that's been done up until now, where you show beautiful palm trees of Tahiti and women dancing and you say, this is the Tahitian pearl. The reason we need to do it is to also justify the price of cultured pearls.
Yeah.
I was last week in Japan visiting pearl farms. it is extremely difficult and extremely long to produce nice, large, high-quality cultured pearls. They're sold for peanuts up until now. One of the reasons is that people see imitation pearls. They can't really make the difference. Freshwater cultured pearls. But I think we need to start explaining how much labor and work goes into it and how rare even cultured pearls of high quality are, to then kind of reposition that. And that's the work the trade needs to do and we need to do as educators. I mean, you mentioned you need to educate people, but I think we should really be supporting and cherishing the work of some of these pearl farmers, which often remind me of like high-end wine growers or whiskey distillers who do it with love and have done it for generations and really want to do it well. So I think it's not just marketing, but it's really about authentic storytelling and educating people about these things, inspiring people. And I think the pearl really is a great symbol.
Yeah, and I think there is a gap now in the industry when it comes to that, because when we talk about precious stones, the whole issue about natural, laboratory grown and so on, there is a lot of literature, a lot of communication, but you're completely right in saying that when it comes to pearls, we are a little bit left in the non-knowledge and non-understanding of, what are the real issues and in which way things could be developed in a proper way. So maybe your next book should be on that. Why not? Something, that could really also explain to the consumer, the risks related to that and in which way, we should really contribute.
Yeah, maybe just because you asked also about regulations and I didn't address that. So yes, there are rules in French Polynesia and Australia. Many farmers have actually self-regulated because they've realized if I want to produce high quality cultured pearls, this is the way they will make money in the long run. So they have an incentive to actually work sustainably. Not all of them, but a lot of them do. So it's a lot of self-regulation. And that's also why a lot of pearl farms are in very, very remote areas where there is no risk of pollution, runoff, and other issues. But the environment is changing. So, but I think it's important to have conversations between people at the source and also consumers because of these things. And just to kind of finish up on that, I think the potential of pearls is you ask anybody on the street, what is a pearl? They can come up with something. If you say to somebody, what's an emerald? Some people who have nothing to do with jewelry be like, that's the blue stone, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Or there's not so much knowledge, but pearl, every single person I've ever kind of said, oh, I work with pearls, say, oh, pearls, that's interesting. Everybody can imagine something. So I think there's also potential to kind of connect with everybody out there about that. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you, which leads me to Melanie, challenges, creative scenario from your perspective, natural pearls, cultured pearls, what is your approach today, thinking to your next creations and collections?
Well, when I started 15 years ago, and my perspective remains the same. I start from a design perspective, so I don't find the exceptional pearl the biggest, the most beautiful, and then I design around it. I actually design first, and then I find the pearls. And this is, in a way, what has led me to using different kinds of pearls, different sizes, different shapes, different colors. So every collection is almost a different chapter of the same book on pearls. And this is actually, the image corresponds to the question, because I wanted to mention that I started also using mother of pearl because I looked what was around the pearl, especially when my collaboration with Tasaki went into its 10th year. And I thought, well, what else can I use outside of the pearls, but that still relates? And it was the shell, because the shell is, I think, it's in such an inferior position in comparison to the pearls. Everyone is looking at the pearl. And I thought the shell carries similar characteristics in terms of color, iridescence, but it comes in such a different form. It's flat, you can get bigger sizes, like bigger sheets, and then you can make bigger pieces. So I'm trying to also, on top of the challenge of working with pearls, I've set myself a new one, which is working with mother of pearl. And people definitely have very specific ideas about mother of pearl. And I tried to combine the two. So it's almost a bit of romantic to say I'm trying to reunite the pearl to its oyster. So I did at some point a collection which matched the same color of pearls to the same color of mother of pearl, which was very interesting for me to do. I think in terms of cultured versus natural, I work mainly with cultured simply because of the price point, but also with a variety of sizes and shapes and colors. And because I think, although I've had a 15-year journey, I would like to think that I will carry on working for many, many decades. So I feel I haven't reached to the natural pearls yet, almost the natural pearls, because they are more expensive, they're harder to find, and they're limiting in many ways. I want to work up to that level, working with conch or mellow, or I actually worked for the first time with natural pearls 2 years ago with clam pearls, and I had to educate myself. I found a supplier. I spent 6 months talking to him to understand, because the price points and the provenance and what is considered a special clam pearl, it has nothing to do with culture pearls. It's a different world. So it's something that I aspire to working with, but because I don't look at pearls in terms of value, it's something that will happen at some point, but I'm not rushing towards it because I feel I have a few more steps until I get to that price point.
Thank you, which leads me also to another question or curiosity that I always have about your creative process. It's kind of personal, but I guess also the audience would be interested. I come more from the overall jewelry industry, so I kind of can understand the process of creativity. But when it comes to pearls, since we have outlined, the challenges, also the important heritage that relates to pearls, what is the energy, the push that you have when you design your jewelry, your pearl collection, your creative approach? And when you sent me this slide, I thought it was very interesting to view the shapes and the way you play with shapes and pearls.
I think the way I create is either by designing or also using my hands, because I do have a sculpture background. And at the beginning especially, I used the pearls as a material. That's why I was very hands-on and very unfazed by cutting pearls and drilling them. And then the other aspect was the design, and then I made larger pieces which were more fashion related and adding chains. There was a photo previously of one of the pieces. Exactly, the one on the right. This is a good thing that they come in different sizes, and you can use them in all sorts of different pieces of jewelry, and then the fact that it's a pearl, it sort of unites. It's like a common thread between all collections, which I've been lucky to be able to explore. I would say that the creative process, I'm much more free about it now. So sometimes there's an idea that will come to me, and I feel that can become a collection, especially for the MG Tasaki line that I've been working on with Tasaki for almost 10 years now. And it's the idea is to reach a wider audience at a certain price point, especially Japanese, and they are very cutting edge in terms of design. They're very demanding clients. They really like originality, so that is perfect for me. And then for my own line, I tend to be more experimental, and I tend to allow myself to make one-off pieces if I feel that is where it stops. It doesn't always have to be sort of dissected into smaller pieces. So I do enjoy that freedom. And then I always really like to use my hands. So you'll see on the previous photo, I will design, I will play with different materials. I actually bought myself during COVID a 3D prototyping machine, so I do a lot of CAD designs. I used to dive more into making a piece, whereas now I make a lot of prototypes in my studio, which saves energy from making pieces, saves, using a lot of metals, using a lot of pearls. I refine the design to the point where I can actually show it to someone who can make it for me, or I will figure out all the components, so it saves me time in the long run, but it's another way to come to the finished product. So I will use whatever is available to me in terms of making or designing for the creative process. I'm not limiting myself.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I think we kind of outlined the fascination of pearls. I mean, it was so interesting to hear all of you from all your different perspectives. And somehow, you know, the outcome is really that pearls have always been there and they will always be there. So what would be for you like a statement, each of you, regarding the future of pearls from your perspectives? You know, I think we have outlined that it's a trend that has always been there with ups and downs. From my perspective, I see there is a strong revamp on pearls. And thanks also to the way, Laurent, you were explaining, you know, all the issues about sustainability and so on, I think there will be even a more stronger interest because they're even becoming more kind of precious because related to nature. But at the same time, I think pearls, they carry this beauty of purity that will never go away. So somehow, from my point of view, I feel that they've always been around and now they are living their momentum that will last for a few years from now on. And when it comes to your perspectives, you know, what would be the statement, the message that you want to leave to our audience when it comes to pearls? Challenging question, huh? Milena, from your observation.
Well, I think that consumers never know what they want, but we all know that everyone is always seduced by beauty. And as you rightly said, pearls are beautiful by themselves. They don't need much. But luckily, nowadays, they are very inspiring for modern designers like Melanie, who come up with incredible new ideas. I mean, you have seen a few pictures, and I'm sure you would agree that the way she portrays pearls is very unique, and it also allows everyone to appreciate a different facet of beauty of this gem, basically. And I think, yes, that as long as there will be pearls and as long as there will be creative people willing to experiment with them, we will see beautiful things because everyone is open to beauty.
Absolutely. Thank you. Laurent?
Yeah, a few things come to mind, but I think the aim should really be to think outside of the box. So yeah, most people have thought of pearls as white, round, and your grandmother's pearls. I think that is changing, as you've described. And I really hope that the industry and journalists, designers, everybody who's in the industry can kind of build momentum in that direction. Because I think there are so many stories to tell that have not been told, and also so many stories from the past. For example, men wearing pearl jewelry. It's not just been in India, but actually in other countries also. And most people don't know that. I see articles saying, oh, pearls are a new trend for men. They are now. But I think there's a lot of the past that we're not so connected with. So I think there's a lot in those drawers and in those old books and in those paintings that we could kind of rediscover. A lot of wisdom also about pearls. You know, there's this myth that Julius Caesar wanted to invade Britain just to get access to the Scottish pearls. I mean, yeah. Or the drink with Cleopatra and the banquet. So many stories and myths. It's absolutely incredible. And maybe a tagline was actually a tagline that a journalist back in 2012 wrote an article about some research we did. And the title was, "Want a Clean Ocean? Wear More Pearls." And I wish that could become more of a reality, so that there is kind of, you know, a credible link between farms and consumers and brands and more storytelling and just a lot more inspiration around pearls. So yeah, that would be it.
Absolutely. And Melanie,
Yeah,
what is next?
I definitely agree both with Laurent and Milena. I would say as we see consumer demand growing and men wearing pearls again, but I'm also seeing a lot of 16-year-olds copying the catwalk and buying their first piece of plastic pearl jewelry, but still, and then moving on to their 20s and 30s and wanting to buy cultured pearls and then sort of evolving in that direction. I wish there would be more transparency. I wish there would be more information about where pearls are coming from. The way we see it I see it anyway, in the gem industry, we're starting to see little pockets of, you get access to who is mining where. I would really like, as a designer, I mean, I'm not even a consumer, but as a designer, I would really like to have access to more information so that I can make better choices and then pass on those choices to people who buy or who are interested in my jewelry.
Definitely. And you shared with us also this lovely picture. Is it something that you are cooking? It's still in process?
This is still in process, and
Okay.
it's gonna hopefully make you come back in a few months to my website. But yeah, I thought it was a nice way to finish with
it
something
is.
that is a bit hidden, but also showing, and obviously it has pearls and something else underneath. So it's the underneath side of a future collection that I've been working on. So maybe actually it relates very well to our conversation about
does.
showing more aspects of the pearl industry and where pearls are coming from and how they're cultivated, and what we can do in the future to protect our planet and our oceans.
Absolutely. Thank you, which brings me to, to the end of our conversation, to our sharing thoughts, ideas, point of views. I would like to ask to our audience if you have any questions. Hopefully we were able to bring some food for thoughts for you, and there are curiosities, insights, questions that you want to share, please.
Hi there. Laurent, you've been to many culture pearl farms. Which one was the most interesting for you and why?
I wasn't expecting this question, Jennifer, but no, honestly, there isn't one single pearl farm, and it comes back to what I said before. For me, it's like wine growers. Everybody's got a different story in a different environment, has a different family story, has a different philosophy of working with the oysters, a different history. And even like last week, I was in Japan visiting Akoya farms. I was always thinking, Akoya, I'm not such a big fan. Thin nacre thickness. And I came back and I visited the farm, and it was grandfather, son, and grandson together working on a farm, a family thing. Beautiful products, incredible oysters. And I was like, wow, okay. I was just surprised again. And it's just totally different to Australia or Fiji or Mexico or whatever. So I think what I would like to see is more that we can highlight and showcase this diversity of the stories, because they're all individual. It's not just generic pearl marketing. So yeah, sorry, I don't have a simple answer. But
well, even talking with about natural pearls, the prices are climbing so much now for culture pearls. Do you think that will change anything for you, for example? Yeah, because the prices of the jewelry will be
Yeah, of
changing a
course.
lot for years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think at the end of the day, the consumer has a certain idea of a price when they look at a pearl pendant or a set of pearl earrings, and you can tell them they are sustainable. You took them yourself out of the oyster, but the price does make a big difference. But as a designer, every challenge is an opportunity. So you cannot just stop at the first hurdle, and you cannot block yourself from such things. There's always new designs coming because of things that stop being produced or other opportunities came out. It's a hidden opportunity. So I don't know, I might use smaller pearls or more nacre, I can't tell you, but this is how things evolve, I think, generally. We sort of move, we go past hurdles, and then new doors open up that you weren't even aware of. So it's obviously, I think it's not great for certain people that prices are climbing, but I personally don't buy thousands of pearls. So for me, it's just an opportunity to look left or right instead of straight.
I was just thinking maybe Milena, as a historian, you have a perspective on this because high pearl prices, that's happened in the past. It's interesting to also talk about the cycles and just the perception of the value and how that's changed over time.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. And in fact, if we think that Cartier, at the beginning of the 20th century, was able to buy its current store in New York in exchange of a pearl necklace, and then the lady who exchanged her building with the necklace, then sold it a few years later for for a really ridiculous price, then yes, you know that prices go up and down. And we are talking about this particular Cartier necklace, we are talking about natural pearls that went terribly down in prices. But anyway, yes, you're right, there are many cycles. And I was not expecting, I have to say, that the revival of interest in natural pearl. But as you were rightly saying before, it's like the cultured pearl saved the natural pearls. And in a way, it feels like the interest in cultured pearls revived interest in natural pearls as well. And so this is why at the moment we are seeing this interesting phenomenon that people are buying more pearls, and naturally when people buy more pearls, prices go up again. So it's a very interesting question because sometimes I always think, and if we think about what happened a few years ago when, so it was in 2018, Sotheby's sold the Marie Antoinette pendant pearl, and it broke every record. It sold for over $30 million. So in that region, basically. So we can see that things change and they don't always stay the same. And as Melanie said, there are always opportunities in the challenges and also in good times. At the moment, I would say is a good time for pearls, both natural and cultural pearls. So let's see what happens.
Definitely. Any more questions from the audience? Yeah, please. Okay. We have another question over there, or
yes.
Yeah.
Hello. I just had a question about because you talk about the farms, and I wanted to know in terms of good practices, what is what is done on the site. Do you have an example or?
So the question was, I think, about practices of farms or what that would look like as a concrete example. So one example is, for example, in Japan, you use a lot, in old pearl farms, you use a lot of plastic lines and nets, just like in fishing. And they're actually using the old plastic nets and things and have melted this with a company, and they're making pellets, and then they're recycling it to create new nets. Microplastics are a big issue, for example, in Tahiti. For a long time, people didn't know it. Now they're becoming more aware of this. That's one example. Another example is that some pearl farmers have forbidden fishing around the farm. So it's like a marine protected area. So it means you actually have more fish than in other areas around it where people are fishing. So the fish can then go if local fishermen want to fish. There's, there's no chemicals used, there's no food used. It's good local employment for people who are in very remote areas. So in a way, people are also becoming educated to the need to protect the oceans.
I think it's very important because the people who are working there are very aware of this. So if we also, we don't have the chance, not everybody has a chance to go there to see it, but I think it's important to be aware of this.
Absolutely, and I think in the end it comes through education. If consumers, if designers, and if traders are asking for it and are even willing to pay a little bit more for it or to tell that story, then for farmers it also makes sense. And now the prices are high. Now is the time to invest in more sustainable practices. 5 or 10 years ago in Tahiti, prices were so low, nobody had any money to improve things. Now the prices are really, really high. So I hope also that that can be an incentive. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And then I think we have another question over here.
What do I tell my clients? How does pollution affect the quality of the pearls? What do I tell them to also sensibiliser mes clients to these issues?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a bit like the question, you know, how does junk food influence humans? It's a little bit challenging because it depends on, are you eating McDonald's once a day, once a week, once a month? Do you have a good metabolism? Do you do sport? And so there's not a direct link. It's a little bit hard. But the trend is very clear that if there is pollution or if the water is too hot, the oysters don't have a lot of energy, so they cannot produce a good quality of mother of pearl. And you see it. Old, weak oysters have very low luster. This is just like with humans and skin. As you age, it ages, and the same thing happens for oysters. They have less energy to put into pearl production. So there is a kind of a clear trend in the two, and any serious pearl farmer will tell you you need the cleanest water possible to ensure that you will get the most beautiful and high quality cultured pearls. And that's the aim, right? People want to make beautiful products. So I think for saying it to consumers, there's not a direct link where you can say this is a polluted pearl and this is a clean pearl, but the trend is clearly there. I mean, there is a need to work well if you want to keep on having beautiful cultured pearls in future.
So thank you very much. Oh, please.
It's a simple question. You was in many places regarding pearl farm, but I can explain from example from Jewelmer in Philippines, in Palawan you was here, there. Paspalais or Robert Van, for example, the three biggest that I know. I think since generation they try to improve about sustainability of pollution, but because it's 1,000 people who work for them on its village, it's I think they try. I don't know about the market because I'm not in this, but I was in Shell market. I was buying mother of pearl for buttons, but these people used to try to not make pollution around, because pollution is the production will be there is no production for the on the price are going up about this.
I mean, they're facing challenges. For example, where Paspalais is working in Australia, people discovered oil and gas offshore. So they were there, and it was, free, very, very remote area, 80-mile beach, income oil and gas industry, and do geo-exploration and are doing, seismic surveys and whatnot, and it's disturbing the whale fish and the fish in general. So it's good that a pearl farm is there employing people and actually showing that you can make money by working sustainably. And same in the Philippines, Jewelmer is employing thousands of people in an area where other people are just fishing, often using cyanide fishing and kind of quite destructive fishing methods. So it's an alternative. It's quite a good livelihood. The problem for them for a long time has been that in the trade, you can't walk into a jewelry shop, and both of you can share more about this, and say, oh, I want a cultured pearl from this island there. All the cultured pearls are mixed in a way so that they fit on a strand. Yeah. And origin or sustainability is something more recent. When you go to the Hong Kong show and you buy cultured pearls, there's mountains of cultured pearls everywhere, and everything's mixed. And that's part of the challenge in getting more traceability. I don't know, maybe you can share something about, the challenges you're facing with that.
It's what I said before when Donatella asked me what I wish for the future is just more transparency. Simple as that, because even I don't know where most of the pearls come from. So I tend to try to to speak to certain dealers and ask questions, but even they are often not very happy, or they don't even know what to share. And sometimes because I don't buy that many, so I can't influence that much, it's really hard to get information.
So I think a huge challenge ahead is how to bring information to the market, to
Don't you think the
consumers.
same way it's
Yeah.
happening in the gem industry?
Absolutely, absolutely.
That it should be, in a way, not copied, but, adapted into the pearl industry. I mean, if already the gem industry is making the start and you get your certified whatever stone, you can probably do something
integrate
similar with pearls,
also
right?
those information and education from the pearl perspective, which brings, very interesting topics and challenges for all of us ahead. Well, so what? Another question? Good. More questions.
My question relates to sourcing of the shell bead nuclei that are used for culturing pearls. I'm familiar with the U.S. production. I'm not knowledgeable about other places. I have recently visited Tennessee, which has been the primary source. It's pretty much devastated. There are many, many types of rare mollusks and shells that are going extinct. There really were only 2 companies. Now there's one main company, and I was visiting, and the progenitor from that recently passed away. I'm not sure what will continue. So my question is, are there other sources, international sources, for the bead nuclei that are maybe even greater supply, or any supply, and what's going to be done or could be done in the event that this supply diminishes even more?
I'll take this one. I mean, it's not that difficult. The reality is, yes, there have, people have been fishing for 200-300 years in the U.S., all these reservoirs off Mississippi, Missouri River, and Kentucky, Tennessee, and elsewhere. In the trade, it gets called Mississippi beads. These are freshwater shells that are then cut to be used as beads in Nicoya, South Sea, and Tahiti. The reality is, you also find these freshwater shells, for example, in China. And so I think that now a lot of the material is actually coming from China, because that's also where the facilities are that actually process the material. There's not many factories left in the US that would process this shell, so it gets shipped to China anyway for making the nuclei. So a lot of these freshwater beads would be coming from Asia today. But there's not that much transparency around that or traceability, so they would still be called Mississippi style because it's the same shells as those you find in the Mississippi kind of region.
I will concede that I have not been active in the Chinese market in a little over a decade, but I was since the very early 80s. And I never saw bead production there. I did not see shells large enough to create a bead nuclei. I do know that there was illegal harvesting of giant clams, and which is not supposed to be used, supposed to be protected, and that was slipping. But that's not a big source. I mean, there never has been a lot, but that was for the larger beads to go into South Seas. So
it's not the muscle that is used for Chinese freshwater cultured pearls that would be used for the beads, because you're right, that is too thin.
No.
They're the shells, like there's different shells that are used in the Mississippi region, pigtoe, and other shells that are very small but very, very thick.
Right.
You find those same shells wild in Chinese rivers, and that's what they use.
What you're then telling me is that there is now more active harvesting. Like I say, that was not my primary focus. I was aware of the pearls and the harvesting, finding wild pearls, natural pearls that came from those sources, but I didn't know anyone really went after the shells. So thank you for that answer.
Yeah, so I don't think I understood everything correctly, but those shells don't produce a lot of natural pearls. They're exclusively fished to be used for beads or nuclei for cultured pearl production.
I have acquired. I mean, as a collector of rare pearls, I used to do very large volume of the non-bead nucleated pearls from Zhejiang province. I mean, and only select material. which
Okay.
seems to have been diminished as well. You can't get that material because now with the Yangtze River Delta
Yeah.
material, which can be produced much quicker, and you have larger and similar kind of colors. So there's less production. Also, a lot of the area was polluted.
Yeah.
We saw 30% of the areas reduced because China needed the water for industrial and for drinking. And then half of the remaining region was reduced because of the pollution, because of bad practices, not by the pearl industry, but by the fish industry. And like I say, it's been actually almost 12 years since I've delved into it, so I can't really speak to current. But thank you. I'm glad I came into this a little late, but I love hearing what I'm hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So,
Speak about Burma, Myanmar pearl. Some 40 years ago.
Sorry, if you can just use the
No,
microphone.
maybe 30 years or 40 years ago, I remember that it was very fashion. No, it was the most beautiful pearl in the market. But now I don't know if you used to have connection in such market about Burma. We spoke about Japan, about Philippines, about Australia, but all of you.
I mean, Burma still has a few pearl farms for South Sea cultured pearl production.
Yeah.
The auctions go on from time to time, mostly in Hong Kong. The prices are very high. They can produce very nice golden colors. So it's niche, but the prices are very, very high. And there is even, Tasaki has some farms in Burma. I don't know if that's still the case today, but there's some Japanese involvement also in Burmese pearl, cultured pearl production. Yeah.
Merci.
Hi again. I don't have a question so much as I'd like to put out the Cultured Pearl Association of America as a resource. My name is Jennifer Hebner. I'm a longtime journalist in the States, but I also represent the CPAA, as we call it. We have an incredible online course called Pearls is One, which is a phenomenal resource. And we have a magazine that we publish a few times a year. We track pearl prices closely. We do, pearls are a niche, as you all know, so we try to put out as much information about cultured pearls as we can. And we also have quite a few members who own cultured pearl farms. So it's, I know the Maratea brand, Robert Wan started promoting it a few years ago through Gellner as a single source farm where, you know, pearls are coming and they're promoting them as specifically from that farm. But there are other much smaller farms, obviously, and you can source directly from them, and we have some information on that. So we're on Instagram as @PearlsCPAA.
thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And again, I want to thank Milena, Laurent, Melanie for being with us today, for sharing your knowledge, your expertise. And it shows that there are many questions related to pearls. Thank you for all your questions. Thank you for your participation. And I hope, you know, we were able to cover some of the questions, some of the curiosity you might have had about pearl and challenges. And, you know, if you want to follow us and keep in connection with us, these are our Instagram accounts to maybe follow up with our conversation through our expert here. So thank you very much and all the best for the show.